Good, beautiful afternoon. Welcome to the Max. Today is all about our pigs. We're going to talk about three things that I believe what you need to kind of know before you start raising pigs and how it can help you raise your own pigs. In our day and time, pigs are a great resource for the farm, but also they taste really good too. So today's video is all about the pigs. Three things I think we all should know when we're raising pigs. All right, like we talked about in the intro, we're going to be talking about pigs. Now, pigs are pretty easy to raise on homestead, but there's three things I think every homestead should know, or every farm should know when raising pigs, especially if you raise them in the way that we raise them, thinking of a more organic hog, not feedlot style pig. So we raise several pigs on our homestead, two different kinds, and we're not going to get into that this video. But we have other videos talking about the kind of hogs we raise and why we raise those hogs. Now, today's video is on those three things that we think can make your homestead hog the very best. So number one, shelter. Do you need shelter when having pigs? Now, I'm going to answer this open-ended. First, you need to decide how you're raising your pig. Is your pig going to be in forest? Is your pig going to be in pasture? Is your pig going to be in a feedlot sense of, on concrete in a barn? So I think that's your first decision to make, is how you're raising your pig. Now, when we raised ours in the pasture and when they were tilling up our gardens, because we use our pigs to work, and again, we'll link some of those videos up here, you do need some kind of cover, because a pig doesn't need cover from rain. It needs cover from sun. So the weather, a pig can actually burn, and it can be very bad on a pig's skin when they're exposed to the sun all the time. So when we talk about raising pigs, if you're raising your pigs in an open pasture, in a cutover, or in the gardens because they're doing work for you like we had before, I believe you need some kind of shelter. And that shelter looks like two flat pallets with a piece of tin on top. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to kind of get them some shade from the sun. Now, a pig doesn't really need safety from weather elements. So now let's talk about, you see this, we raise our pigs in a forest. Examples of the shade that they have. When you raise your pigs in a forest, they really don't need some kind of shelter. We do not put any shelter over our pigs now. We used to, and when they're piglets, we do, because we put them in our barn. But when we're raising them here, they've got tons of shade. That's number one. So, number two. The most important thing about your pigs, past shelter, you gotta have shelter, is how are you keeping these pigs in a shelter, permanent fence, fencing, temporary fence, barn? Is their place of residency. Speaking from a wide array of experience of seeing my pigs not hang out in the pig pen that they're supposed to be in, we raised ours in a permanent fence for a long time. We realized that was the best way to do it. Deep bed it, put a net up for them, put a house up for them, a shelter up for them, and that's how we were going to raise pigs, because that seemed to be the smartest. Well, the only thing about raising pigs on deep bedding, you're usually feeding them more. Not only are you feeding them more, you tend to have some kind of bedding material. So we were buying a lot more mulch, and they're not really getting exercise. So if you're growing one out real quickly, you don't have much months with them, and you don't have a lot of time, man, deep bed mulch, the best way to go. But it will cost you, because a pig will eat you out of house and home. Secondly, you got to buy mulch. And thirdly, it kind of gets kind of nasty. So if you do that option, that's fine. We tried it. Didn't work for us, because we knew we wanted ours to be a pastured pork or a forest pork pig, a leaner quality pig. So hence the forest. So when we had them in the gardens, we started doing temporary fencing. We tried chicken and sheep netting. Didn't work. We tried movable fencing, like hot wire fencing that we use for our cows. Didn't work. But we started buying the Premier One hog net, not the pig net, not the baby net, the big monster hog net. And we also bought the IntelliShock 60 from Premier One. Now, those two things are worth their weight in gold, because we chase pigs for months and months and months and months and months, days and days and days and days and days and days, all the time. We were so sick of chasing pigs. I wanted to eat a pork chop every time I got done with them. So, that being said, how are you keeping your pigs? Are you keeping them in barns? Are you keeping them in permanent fencing? So if so, make sure you have deep bed. Make sure you're ready to have a pretty good feed bill. If you're keeping them in forest, which is what I like, they eat all the junk underneath, clean it up, they have covering, and they forage a little bit more. But you need a strong net, and I'd advise, again, Premier One does not know who the Macs are, but Premier One fencing, hog net, and then also the IntelliShock 60 is the very best fencing for, I know, feeder pigs and American guinea hogs. That's what we raise. All right, so we're filling up the cow's water right now as we're talking, but there's your next number 3. When you talk about security, you talk about where they're staying, you talk about your fencing, how are you going to feed and water these pigs? A pig will eat you out of house and home. That is so true. A lot of times people say don't raise your pigs from piglets and also let the, have a boar, because ultimately you can't make money and you can't really be a sustainable farm when raising your own piglets. Most people buy them as feeder pigs, and they're either already, cut as males, or either they're just females that they're not going to breed. I disagree with that. I think you can make money, because we have, and I think you can also raise a pork product for cheaper than what people say, because we're not putting them on feedlots. If you're doing a feedlot, if you're doing, like I said, the deep mulch bed system in the barn, you may not can make money in raising your pigs. I understand that. And you may not can actually save money by raising your own pigs. It still is better quality pigs, so please still raise them. But when it comes to forest and pasturing your pig and your pork, you can, because ultimately they're going to forage. Ultimately, you're going to give them a good quality food. And it costs us, and I'm going to tell you this, it costs us about $200 per pig per year. That's about $16, $17 a month that we pay for non-GMO feed that feeds our pigs. Now, that being said, we cheat a little bit, because guess what? We have 2 beautiful milk cows that provide us tons and tons and tons of milk and old skim and old cream. And we have a family of 7 who loves to eat, but they have a lot of scraps too. We feed our pigs anything that we typically eat. So there's okra, squash, onions, eggs, banana peels, and I'm not going in the rest of it. So if you have a way to get scraps from someone or your family, or you have a way to get old milk, that's 2 things that pigs love, and it will save on your food bill. Now, if I was not doing those 2 things, it would probably cost us, probably double that to raise pigs. So make sure you have a good plan of how you're feeding your animals. We feed ours with a non-GMO pellet that costs about $15 per 40-pound bag, plus the milk, plus the grass that they're in, because they forage, and nuts and things like that under all these trees. But then also we give them old skim and our old scraps. So make sure you have that in plan. And then finally, talking about the second part of number 3 is water. Water. Pigs do not drink as much as cows, or even as much as chickens, to me, compared to their body size. They really don't, to me. We use a 55-gallon bucket that we've put hog nipples on, and I think it works phenomenal. Because remember, if you're not filling up that bucket, if you have a little bucket, they're going to waller in it, or they're going to dump it out. A pig likes clean water. I'm just going to be honest with you. If they dirty up their water, they're not going to drink it. They're going to lay in it, because they believe it's a wallering hole. So make sure when you're doing that, that you either put your bucket in a thing of a tire. You could put your bucket in a tire, and that would help it from flipping over, and that would help them not having to be able to get into it. But I'll be honest with you, the 55-gallon buckets, like I'm fixing to show you now, like, that works. These work tremendously well. We'll link in our basically in our Amazon. You'll see the nipples we use. We buy on Amazon. They're dirt cheap. They're like $10, and it's worth your investment there. We have a creek that runs through our forest right here, and we have a pond over here. Pigs are not really the one that you want to put in those areas, because they will destroy it. They will mess up the flow of your pond, your creek or your river, and then they will also make big wallering holes on your dam, and it's just bad. So you've got to make sure you have a great watering source. Again, we use the 55-gallon buckets with these little pig nipples. It does great So make sure you have a good water source. Not that they drink a lot of water. However, the water they do drink, they want it clean, because once it starts getting dirty, it becomes a laying hole for them. All right, guys, we are finishing up with filling up the water for the cows, and actually we're fixing to move over to moving our pigs. So we hope that you enjoyed this video. We hope this is informative. Always remember, number one, what kind of shelter are you putting your pigs in? If you're putting your pigs in permanent shelter or barns, remember you have to have deep bed mulch, and you probably have to feed them a good bit more. If you're using nets, make sure you have great chargers, and make sure you have a good setup and it's easily to be able to move, because ultimately you can't do this 40 hours a week moving pigs. And then also, if you are having a permanent fencing, make sure that you're putting them in an area with shelter if it's out in the sun. If you're putting them in the gardens or pastures, they do not need shelter from the weather, but they do need it from the sun. Point 2, remember, you have to have good fencing. You have to have a way to keep these bad boys in, because they like to go everywhere that you don't want them. We learned our lesson. So make sure, if you're using those kind of fences like the temporary fencing, make sure you understand how to use them and how to train your pig. We also trained our pig in a barn, double wrapped our net to make sure they hit it once, and then they'd hit it again. If they went through the first one, they couldn't go through the second one. So make sure you're training them well to temporary fencing. We'll talk about that in another video. And thirdly, make sure your feed and water, you know what it's costing you. It cost us $200 a pig, but we are also feeding tons of scraps and also tons of milk from these beautiful, lovely girls over here. So if you're not doing that, count the cost of what it's going to cost you to raise these pigs. If you're wanting to breed them like we do, we have a sustainable farm, so we want males on the farm, we want boars, we want bulls, we want roosters, because we want sustainable living on our farm. So make sure you have great water for them, great food for them, great shelter for them, great fencing for them. Realize pigs are way smarter than you give them credit for. Now here's what I was talking about on these bowls. This is just the extra one we have right here. Now this bowl is great to feed them scraps, but this bowl needs to be removed after they eat those scraps. Do not leave this bowl in here, because you know what they'll do? Let me show you what they'll do. They will take this bowl, and with their noses, they'll push it against this fence. And this fence, they'll lay it over and keep pushing it and keep pushing it. And all of a sudden now they have a way out, just like that. And it's popping that bucket and not them. So you see what they've done. That's actually where they were originally when we moved them to forest. Look how good that grass has grown back. So we're setting it up for our cows and our sheep once all these trees are gone. If you cannot get your pigs eating grass and foraging, we give our pigs some alfalfa. We give them some orchard grass. We give them some Timothy, because what it does is they're used to eating that grass pellet. Well, then they'll start grazing on this. So that's a good tidbit. If you don't know that, it worked. My pink pigs, my feeder pigs, would not eat any kind of grass. My American guinea hog would. They're foragers, great pig if you don't know that. But my pink pigs wouldn't. But I started feeding them a quality grain, but not only grain, we started feeding them some alfalfa pellets, some orchard grass pellets, and some Timothy. They started getting used to it, and now this will be gone in a day. Not from just trampling, from eating. See, they didn't trample this grass. There's one little piece trampled. All the rest is gone. They ate it. They will tear it up and love eating it. And it's great quality protein. Great for them. Gives a leaner pig and a good quality pig. All right. Come on, pigs. Hey, pigs. Hey, pigs. Hey, pigs. Hey, pigs. Hey, pigs. Good job. Hey, pigs. Hey, pigs. Good job. Guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. God bless. Happy homesteading, y'all.